Good morning, and thank you so much for your interest in the outdoor recreation economy and what our industry looks forward to every year now, which is the release of new government data on outdoor recreation's powerful and positive economic impacts across the country and really in every state. I'm Jessica Wall, the Executive Director of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, and ORR is a coalition of 33 recreation associations made up of 110,000 businesses representing really the full breadth of recreation. We're working together to make the recreation pie bigger instead of fighting over the slices of the pie. And we've come together to really show through all of the various activities that you can participate in outdoors what a 700 and was 78, and we'll let BEA tell us what the new number is, but what a $778 billion economy looks like, an economy that was growing faster than the economy as a whole in every indicator for several years, and really the impact of that economy in every corner of the country. So today we'll learn about the industry's growth prior to the pandemic. So we're looking at 2018 and 2019 numbers. And I also want to shed some light on where we are today for context. I know we're going to be looking back a little bit at the data, but we've undergone many changes in the past 6 months. Please slide change. So in May, the Census Bureau ranked outdoor recreation as the second most impacted industry in the entire country. So right under food and accommodation, which is also part of our industry. Entire supply chains were disrupted, manufacturers were closed, retailers were closed, local, state, and federal parks were closed, and those really serve as the backbone of our industry. Everything was shuttered along with other sectors of the economy. But at the same time, what we were seeing was a new trend emerge, more people getting outside, turning to the outdoors like never before for solace, reprieve, time with friends and family, a safe way to get outside where the pandemic and the virus couldn't spread as easily. So this influx of participation really showed up in sales data. It showed up in license records for hunting and fishing, in power sports, boat, camping, RV records, online passes, equipment, and more. And we saw this influx of new and younger participants that we really hope to harness into the future. So we're really excited to hear from BEA today about where our industry was right before the pandemic, right before early 2020, and where we can get again, what growth trajectory we can get back on. So with support from Congress and the administration, we can get back to the outdoors and the outdoor sector doing what we do best, which is building healthy communities, healthy economies, growing jobs, and contributing to quality of life in every corner of the country. So I'm thrilled to have experts from across the industry here to share information. You can see our great list of speakers, and we're really, really thankful for BEA to spend some time with us walking through the data. This data has been coming out, we've gotten data every year since 2016, and it's the culmination of agency support and a really great bill that passed in 2016 called the REC Act. So thank you for everyone in Congress. It passed unanimously for your support of this data. It's contributed to our knowledge of our industry, and certainly I think Americans' understanding of what an important economic driver we are. So what we hope to cover today is where the industry's been in the past 5 years and where we're headed, how we contribute to more than just the economy, how we contribute to health and wellness, jobs, recruitment, and retention, even for other sectors, user fees, excise tax, and fuel taxes. So we're contributing actually to federal and state spending in this area too. And how participation has changed through the pandemic and this newfound appreciation for the outdoors that we really hope to harness post-pandemic. We will have time at the end for questions, so please continue to auto-populate the chat box if you have questions. We'll look to the press for questions first with the hand raise feature, and then open it up to the rest of the participants. And with that, I'd like to first introduce the economists from the Bureau of Economic Analysis to unveil the 2018 and 2019 national and state data for the outdoor recreation economy. We have Kyle Brown, the chief of the PCE branch, and economists Patricia Washington and Dirk Van Dun with us. Excited to see the data, and I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jess. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about this new data release this morning. My name is Dirk Van Dun. I'm an economist at BEA working in the regional accounts, and I've been super excited to work on this project. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today, we released an update for 2012 to 2017. I'll start with the national numbers. We revised data back to 2014, and we have new estimates for 2018 and 2019. Some of these prior revisions reflect revised data from BEA's travel and tourism satellite account, updated expenditure data from our government partners, and incorporation of the latest national and industry annual update results. So this is really what gives BEA the advantage here. We can measure outdoor recreation in a consistent manner with how we measure the rest of the economy. Next slide, please. So let's get right into the numbers. At the top line, outdoor recreation as a share of total GDP in 2019 was 2.1%. So I know I don't have much time, so I'll focus you on that 2019 column on the right. Some of the statistics we publish are value added, which you can think of as equivalent to GDP. So that's where that 2.1% comes from for 2019. Outdoor recreation GDP was $459.8 billion as compared to the total economy in that top row. And we also published data on gross output, which is similar to total sales, and employment and compensation. So note especially that employment number, that's 5.2 million jobs in the outdoor recreation sector. And compensation of those employees working in outdoor recreation, $226 billion in 2019. So this share of 2.1%, that's bigger than mining, bigger than agriculture, about on par with broadcasting and telecommunications. Next slide, please. One innovation on how we measure this account is by activity, not only by typical industries like manufacturing, construction, et cetera, but looking at specific outdoor recreation activities. And you see here the top activities in 2019, boating and fishing coming in at $23.6 billion in value added. RVing was second, just behind. And you see some more of the top activities on this pie chart. And notice that big all other section. There's a huge number of outdoor recreation activities that are contributing to the US economy as a whole. Next slide, please. In terms of growth, so that last slide was just looking at the biggest activities in 2019. Here, we're looking at, compared to 2018, what was the highest growth going into 2019. And so we saw that hunting, shooting, and trapping was the activity that led the way, growing at almost 10%. And you see some more of these outdoor recreation activities: festivals, sporting events and concerts, motorcycling and ATVing, and snow activities also grew quickly in 2019. Next slide, please. So that was a glance at the national numbers. At the state level, last year, we were excited to unveil the prototype state outdoor recreation numbers. This year, they have moved after comments from many of you, Federal Register notice. We made some improvements, and this year we have official BEA statistics at the state level for outdoor recreation. We revised what we published last year from 2012 to 2017, and we have new estimates for 2018 and 2019. Next slide, please. So importantly, how should you think about how we measure outdoor recreation at the state level? We take we're measuring outdoor recreation by place of production. So it's a production-based account, and so we're not thinking about where people are living, but where they're contributing to local economies. So a good example here is the RVing activity. We're not just capturing RVing in the states that people go RVing. it's the entire supply chain perspective. Manufacturing often happens in Indiana. Manufacturing of RVs, we capture there. The wholesale and retail of RVs, we capture in the state that happens. And then fees that people pay when they're taking their RVs to a national park are captured at national parks, national forests, what have you. So with this state level view, we really see the supply chain impact of outdoor recreation across the economy, across the country. And with that, let's go to the next slide and start looking at some maps, my favorite. So this map is showing you the outdoor recreation share of each state's economy. Okay, so if you take a look at, say, Hawaii, you see that 5.8 number. That means 5.8% of Hawaii's economy is in the outdoor recreation sector. So remember that 2.1% was the number at the national level. We see the variation across states, Hawaii at the top, unsurprisingly, the District of Columbia at the bottom. And you see a similar pattern as to what we published last year, with states in the Mountain West standing out, Vermont, Florida. A significant portion of these states' economies is from outdoor recreation. But indeed, outdoor recreation is taking place across the country. And you can see that well on this map. On the next slide, we show a similar perspective, but for employment. So where are outdoor recreation jobs a high share of a state's total jobs? And so you see, again, Hawaii leading the way, Wyoming, Montana, very high. And so that US number here is 3.3%. So a higher share of jobs are in outdoor recreation than total value added. And again, we see the variation across states. I should add that much more information like these slides, you can do your own mapping on our website, bea.gov, search for outdoor recreation. There's tons of information available. Next slide, please. So let's talk about a few specific activities in my remaining couple minutes. So as I mentioned, boating and fishing was the largest conventional activity in 2019. So of that $23.6 billion, how was that distributed across the country? Florida came in first, 14% of that boating and fishing value added at the national level, followed by California, Texas, New York, and Michigan. And then all other states accounted for the remaining 62%. Boating and fishing really spread out across the country. And remember, when we're talking about this total activity level, it's all the different impacts of boating and fishing on the economy. The manufacturing of boats, the sale of fishing gear, the sale of gasoline that power boats are using, the manufacture of sails. It's all included here. And then one more activity that I'd like to show you on the next slide is RVing. Here we see that large contribution by Indiana in terms of RV manufacturing, but it's really, again, spread out across the country. You see Texas, California, Florida, Ohio coming in the top 5. So this is just an illustration of the kinds of data that you can look at with this new and updated outdoor recreation account. We have data by industry and by activity for value added, and by specific industry for outdoor recreation, employment, and compensation at the state level. Next slide, please. There is my contact information if you want to reach out and learn more. And with that, I think I will turn it back over to Jess.
Thanks so much. And thanks for all the work that goes into these reports and modeling. The team at BEA is all-star, and they've kind of taught us all economics 101 in the past couple years. I just wanted to highlight a few things. You know, what we use as the industry kind of gold standard is the $778 billion number. So that was 2017. And according to Dirk and the BEA data, that's now $788 billion in economic output. So great growth, and that's the number that you'll be seeing coming out from ORR and our partners over the coming years. Also great growth in jobs and compensation and employment at a time when the economy was growing really fast. To stay on track with that growth is amazing. And we're gonna hope to continue that next year and into the future. So thanks so much, Dirk. There's great resources on the BEA website. There's an interactive map that I highly recommend you look at with a ton of information, and you can pull PDFs. And there's pretty much everything Dirk went through in as much detail as you can imagine on the BEA website. So we'll have that link at the end of the presentation. So to kick off our industry speakers, I'm really thrilled to hand it over to Lisa Audenbrew, the Executive Director of the Outdoor Industry Association, who's been doing a ton of economic data work for decades and has some more information to shed light on this report. Lisa?
Thanks, Jess. I can't see. We're really excited that this data is coming out now. It's very interesting that it's coming out right at the height of a global pandemic and at a time when Americans are getting outside more than ever. As Jess mentioned, we've been tracking both economic data since 2006, which the BEA work is the culmination of that. And we've also been tracking outdoor participation for the last 15 years. And what's really significant, and the reason we think the 2020 data is going to be even better, is that for the last 15 years, we've tracked this participation data, and outdoor participation has hovered around 48–50% of the American population. And we have early indicators from polling that suggest that up to 69% of people are getting outside now, and that during the pandemic, getting outdoors is one of the few things you could do to be socially distancing, whether that was in a neighborhood park or a national park. And it's really important not just for the economic contributions that are being made, but as Jess mentioned earlier, we know that people's health and wellness right now, particularly during COVID-19, is really tied to their ability to get outside, go for a walk, a hike, boat, fish, or any one of the other activities that you can do outside when so much of what we're able to do is limited. People are yearning for that social connection and that ability to spend time outdoors. So I really want to focus on the 2019 data is incredibly encouraging, and we think that 2020 is going to be even better data. I'm going to turn it over now to Eric Pritchard, who is President and CEO of the Motorcycle Industry Council.
Thanks, Lisa. The BEA data reinforce what we in the power sports industry have known for some time. Motorcycles, ATVs, and side-by-sides fuel the outdoor economy through production, assembly, distribution, and dealerships across the country. I'll make 3 observations. First, we've seen record sales during COVID-19 as new and returning riders flock to power sports as a socially distant form of recreation that is fun for individuals and families alike. Combined power sports sales, motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides in 2020 are significantly higher than they were in 2018 and 2019. Double-digit sales growth across all 3 categories. Second, 2020 rider training is on pace to meet or exceed 2018 and 2019 training volume, despite training being shut down for several months this year. There is a lot of demand. Finally, the power sports industry annually contributes about $300 million to the recreational trails program through gasoline taxes, but only about $84 million is directed toward trail maintenance, and only a portion of that goes to trail maintenance for motorized vehicles. Put another way, the power sports industry subsidizes all forms of outdoor recreation, hiking, biking, horseback riding. And if Congress were to put more of our $300 million gas tax contribution toward trails, the economic impact of outdoor recreation would be even greater due to more opportunities to recreate. With that, let me introduce Frank Hugelmeyer, the president of the National Marine Manufacturers Association.
Thanks, Eric. The BEA data once again affirms that the outdoor recreation industry is one of our nation's most important economic sectors. It supports thousands of small businesses, millions of American jobs, and regional economies. And now, while the new data does not capture the impact of the pandemic, it reaffirms the strong footing our industry was on before the crisis. If there's one thing you should remember, it's this: outdoor recreation sector was driving growth across the overall economy prior to COVID, and it's one of the few sectors still holding up the US economy during COVID. We know this because we've seen a remarkable shift in how consumers make choices related to spending this year. For instance, many American families, outdoor activities such as recreational boating and fishing have provided one of the safest socially distanced atmospheres to spend time relaxing and rejuvenating during the pandemic. And we expect this trend towards the outdoors to likely last long after the crisis is resolved. Now, as the largest contributor to the outdoor recreation's economic output, boating and fishing plays a uniquely important role. This year, 44,000 new boat buyers entered the market between March and June, representing a 10% year-over-year growth in the middle of a pandemic. It's also important to recognize that the industry sales this year were carried by smaller, more entry-level boats. So 95% of the boats sold in America, they're under 26 feet or under and affordable for most families, and 70% are used for fishing. Now, we've seen a surge in fishing participation and record sales and fishing licenses across many states during the pandemic. And that's going to deliver more funding to state budgets via license sales, federal excise taxes on fishing equipment, and boating gas tax revenues. Outdoor recreation is one of the few areas also where lawmakers on both sides of the aisle agree. We saw proof of that earlier this year when the Great American Outdoors Act was passed. To sustain our economic activity and to ensure additional sector growth in the future, we must do the following. One, protect and expand the access to our public lands and waterways. Two, we must modernize recreation infrastructure. And three, we must mitigate the harmful effects of climate change. And we're facing a changing administration and a national debate about policy priorities. It's important for us to recognize the tremendous value that outdoor recreation plays in the economic health and personal wellness of all Americans. We saw evidence of that throughout this challenging year, where the pursuit of happiness industry, it's in our founding documents, and there's few sectors more American. With that, I'd like to introduce Paul Bamby, President and CEO of the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds.
Hello. The National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds represents about 3,000 privately owned and operated campgrounds in North America. And these are primarily entrepreneurs. Many of them are second, third generation who own their land and support the rural economy in many ways. As good as the 2019 ORSA data was, the campground sector is on a trajectory to do even better in 2020. I'd like to share some fresh data from the KOA Fall 2020 research study entitled The Growth of Camping Amid COVID-19. First metric, and this one is probably the most exciting to me and those in my industry. At the start of the year, things looked grim. We had a 185% increase year over year in cancellations through about April. But the statistic that really excites us is that 26% of campers in 2020 were new. 36% of campers went camping as their first trip once restrictions were lifted. And again, as many have said already, people just wanted to be outdoors safely and with their families. So it's no surprise that so many went to the campgrounds. And then lastly, 25% of prospective campers tried an RV for the first time. If you've ever been in an RV, you know it's not very difficult. You can rent them, you can own them, but people, for whatever reason, were a little shy in the past, and this year was a breakout year for them to get behind the wheel. We're ending the season strong. Year-over-year reservations are up 19% in September, and advanced deposits are up 32% going into 2021. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Amy Allison, Director of North Carolina Recreation Industry Office.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. We're really thrilled to see this data today and to see an overall increase in North Carolina's outdoor recreation industry from this new data. The data shows that the outdoor recreation economy accounted for 2% of the GDP in North Carolina, which is $12 billion. You can see that information here on the screen. These numbers really help us to garner the support needed to continue for the continued growth of the outdoor recreation economy in our state. And we continue to see increased interest in outdoor recreation businesses wanting to grow their businesses and be a part of our state's outdoor recreation economy. And these numbers show that North Carolina is a state that really works to help our outdoor recreation businesses grow and thrive. And we've all seen the surge of increase in outdoor recreation due to the impact of COVID-19 that's highlighted the need for more access and more outdoor recreation opportunities for the health and wellness of our state's residents and visitors. And we all know that, as Lisa mentioned earlier, that outdoor recreation has been and will continue to be a huge part of the recovery process here and across the nation. You can see this great overview here on the screen of North Carolina's numbers. Again, we're really excited about the increase we see. And this new data shows us that since 2018, the outdoor recreation value add has grown 5.5% in North Carolina, compared to an increase of 3.7% for the US as a whole. These numbers really show us the strength of the outdoor recreation industry as a powerful economic driver in our state and in the nation. And the numbers will help us to move the needle towards positive action that supports the industry, supports the health and wellness of our residents and visitors in our state, and supports a healthy infrastructure of public lands that's really vital to our industry's economic growth. And with that, I will pass it over to Rachel Schmidt, the Director of the Montana Outdoor Recreation Industry Office.
Thank you, Amy. In addition to being the director of the Montana Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation, I'm also the chair of the Confluence of States, which is an organization comprised of all of the offices of outdoor recreation across the United States. I work for Montana and Governor Steve Bullock to grow and enhance the outdoor recreation economy in the state by holistically looking at direct industry, infrastructure, conservation and stewardship, education, technical workforce training, and health and well-being. These numbers have helped us make great decisions throughout the years we've had them as it relates to policy that help us grow and enhance this segment of the economy. But we also understand that the outdoor recreation economy does not just benefit that direct economy. It's helping us grow other segments as well. Outdoor recreation plays a really important role in Montana and other states on the recruitment and retention of non-recreation related businesses. Our Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research, which is out of the University of Montana, conducted a survey of business owners in 2020. This holistic survey of all business owners showed that 40% of these business owners were neither born or raised in Montana, and that 26% of these business owners chose Montana as a place to relocate and start business based on a vacation around recreation to Montana. As we talked to them about the factors that contributed to them relocating and staying in Montana, it was quality of life that was ranked #1 most important reason for locating a business in Montana. And if you drill down into the pieces and components that comprise the outdoor recreation quality of life, those attributes are outdoor recreation, parks, open spaces, and cost of living. And all of those are put together to compose that quality of life. We saw that in the last just 18 months with businesses like ClassPass relocating, ideally starting with, I think it was 50 jobs. Within 12 months, that business grew to 200 jobs, specifically because of the location of the business. There's consulting companies like Unico. There's filming. Yellowstone, if anybody's heard of that TV show, has moved all of their filming to Montana because of that quality of life. But additionally, we've seen that acquisitions of Montana-based businesses, those acquisitions do not result in a moving of that company or moving of those jobs. Because in order for those businesses to retain the talent that they have, they need to keep those businesses located in Montana because people just don't want to leave once they get here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and thanks so much to all of our speakers providing more information on just how important recreation is to all facets of life in our country. And we're really excited to have so many participants on the line today. I know some questions have popped up and we're answering some as we go, but just wanted to see if there's any press or media that we didn't answer questions for, to please raise your hand. And I don't think I saw any of that. With that, you can use the hand raise function to ask any additional questions of our panelists or of the BEA economists, or you can add questions to the chat box, and I'll be monitoring that, and we can see if anything comes up in the next couple seconds before we close out here. Just to let everyone know, if you didn't see in the chat box, we will have this recording sent to all registrants. We also have the data on our website as well as on the BEA website, where they have a really comprehensive look at what they shared today. So all of those resources are in the chat and will be sent out after this. Without any questions, and I think we're answering some in the chat. Oh, a couple are coming through. Just thank yous. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you to everyone. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into this data. It was released at 8:30 this morning, so we'll have a lot more information coming out. And just looking forward to working with all of you, our partners, our friends on the Hill, and at the agencies, to continue to prioritize outdoor recreation as part of the economy that can really support healthy people, healthy places, and healthy communities. And with that, we hope you all have a great day, and looking forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Jess, I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. It looks like there are a couple of questions in the Q&A box if we want to take a look at those.
Oh, sure. If you want to stay on, I will grab those. One of the questions was, how many states have outdoor recreation councils or advisory groups, and are they helpful at forwarding policies? Yes, there's 17 states that have official outdoor recreation offices or task forces, and about 27 states are engaged with the National Governors Association Outdoor Recreation Learning Network. And Lisa, I might hand it over to you to just speak a little bit to, and obviously Amy and Rachel, how they can achieve some great work on behalf of the industry in those states. Lisa, Rachel, Amy.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about offices of outdoor recreation. Like Jess said, there are actually 17 of us across the United States. And what our states understand is that outdoor recreation does play a very important role in our state's economy. And what we do often, like I said, I grow and enhance the outdoor recreation economy, but I have the ability, I work out of the governor's office, and I have the ability to work with any agency, any department, anyone in the state of Montana on any aspect of outdoor recreation. I elevate a lot of conversations, create space and priority around a lot of recreation conversations that may not have had priority before my office existed. And so as far as outdoor recreation goes, anyone out of the industry, any user groups, any private citizens, I'm the direct link to the governor's office on all things outdoor recreation. And so it's just a very lightning fast way to elevate conversations and talk about that. I provide a lot of assistance for outdoor recreation industry businesses, and I'm able to focus on what's the most important aspects to making sure that they're growing and they're healthy and happy.
Now, I would add, particularly during the time of COVID-19, having these offices was incredibly important. Here in Colorado, I know as a specific example, having that recreation office, bringing the outdoor industry together, helped the outdoor industry pivot to the production of personal protection equipment. from many of our companies to help serve the people of Colorado.
Great. And there's a couple questions for BEA. So Dirk, maybe you can answer. One, which I would love to know from you too, what does BEA see as really stand out in this data? So you look at data all the time and you're looking at a lot of different industries. What do you see that stands out about data this year and data in general around the outdoor recreation economy?
Sure, great question. It's hard to pick one particular thing. I think just the breadth of the industry across all of these different activities and all these traditional industries are contributing to outdoor recreation. So you see contributions from manufacturing, from retail, from wholesale, from travel. So it's really that breadth of contributions that I think is especially notable, and really I would say that's the main thing. I also think we see across states, it's not as I mentioned, it's not only the states that people typically think of about outdoor recreation, but it's really helping the economies across the country in that from that supply chain perspective. And I also wanted to add, I was typing a response to someone who wanted more information by state, those highlights that were shown for North Carolina and Montana. So the easiest way to do that is to go to our outdoor recreation page, click on Browse the Map, and then you'll be able to click on any individual state, and that PDF with the highlights should pop up.
Dirk, there was a couple questions about overland travel segments, if they were included, and trips and travel. Can you speak to those two things, if overland travel was included, in the RV component, and then how trips and travel were measured?
Yeah, so we're capturing the travel where it's happening. So for example, for something like, RVing is a contributor, not just from manufacturing of RVs and from the fees that are paid at campgrounds, but a sizable share of gasoline purchases in the nation is for RVing, right? And so we're capturing that the contributions from gas stations across the country, and so that I think hopefully answers that question. I saw another question about RVing with tents that go on top of your car. So that might be captured potentially in the camping activity, but it will be captured in the outdoor recreation totals.
Okay, great. And then I think we have time for one more question. I think this can go to all of our speakers. How different was the atmosphere for outdoor recreation from 2018 to 2019, as the top line figures are fairly similar, and they're fairly similar to 2017. There's obviously been growth year over year, but a decent paced growth. Because we expect 2020 to be so much different, I'm curious how much of a change in the top line numbers you expect in this new atmosphere. So when we get our 2020 data next year, do you all expect that to be very different? If so, how? I think Paul spoke a little bit to this. And then also, what were you seeing happening in the industry between 2018 and 2019?
I'll take a shot at that. Yes, I think it's a really difficult question to answer in terms of the forecast going forward this year. You had 2 months of shutdown, which was very disruptive. So you're seeing in at least the boating industry and fishing industries, you're seeing significant retail growth and activity growth. So you're seeing a lot of spending in actually doing the activities. And so that's almost certain to grow in 2020 during COVID. The challenge right now in being able to give an accurate answer is that the manufacturing side, the supply chain disruptions are still ongoing. So in the boating industry, we have a 10% increase in retail sales that's been trending out this year. we're seeing a 20% down in manufacturing output because of disruptions and shutdowns in different sectors, as well as supply chain shortages, to be quite honest. That's not just boating, that's across RV, that's across other motorized sectors. Anybody who's trying to create a product, an end product, and has an input has had some sort of supply chain disruption, and that's continuing around the country. So it's going to be very difficult to see where that's going to balance out. I actually think the economists will have a better idea of how that'll impact, and it's going to be difficult to forecast because of that discrepancy that we're seeing within the industries right now.
Anyone else on that? Eric or Lisa or Paul?
I would just add that the curiosity factor in the campground industry is working very much in our favor. We're seeing millennials and Gen Xers come out like never before. And as I mentioned, many of those folks are experimenting behind the wheel of an RV or just generally camping for the first time in their lives. So I think as the unpredictability of COVID will be hanging in the air for many months, it's a positive thing that our industry is in the fresh outdoors, and it just seems like one of those things that is intuitively understood, but until you get out there and do it, you really don't know what you're missing. And I'm just encouraged that people are getting out there and doing it.
And I think, you know, as Frank mentioned, it's hard to predict because in the first quarter, we saw this really significant decline in retail. Stores weren't open due to shutdowns. But for many of the businesses that I represent, when I speak to them about the end of the second quarter and the third quarter, some of them had their best quarters ever. Some had their best quarter in the last 5 years. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about this is, you know, if the supply chain issues, we're running out of equipment, people are willing to try something new. So if they went to go buy a canoe and that wasn't available, they'd go for a paddleboard. What we're seeing for winter sports is if something isn't available, people will try snowshoeing for the first time. I think what we're going to find in 2020 is that people wanted to get outside no matter what, willing to try new activities, willing to experiment, and we hope it becomes a long-term habit.
Great. And then everyone else who had questions, it looks like, thanks to BEA, you've been answering a lot of them in the chat box. So thank you. Some of them are really technical, and we're all here to continue to answer these questions and dig into the data and continue as ORR and our amazing members who are really experts in their sectors, continue to talk about the policies that will continue this growth and really ensure that our sector can be part of the economic solution in the coming years and revitalize all economies, rural economies, urban economies, and in every state. As Dirk, I think, so well put it, we have recreation economies in every state and in every corner of the country, and they look really different, but I wouldn't count any of the states out. I'd dig into each state's data and better understand what's happening there, because it's a fascinating study. So thanks again to BEA. Thanks for everyone for being here. We had about 300 participants. So really excited that many people are jazzed about outdoor recreation data on a Tuesday morning. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Thank you so much.